Really to help school districts across the state, try to help them find solutions, not necessarily something they thought about, but out-of-the-box solutions to help bring fiscal sustainability to their districts. Because that's the only way, we're going to help education. Every kid should have access to quality education. To do that, the budgets have to be fiscally sustainable. You can't go every few years where you're having contract negotiations or overspending, and then you have to start laying off teachers, cutting programs. That's not good for the kids, and we have to find a new way to do that. And that's kind of what I've been doing, trying to work with other school districts and stuff on this. The way we're going to work tonight, I'm going to try to run through the presentation and then open it up for you guys to ask questions. You can come up front so you can have the mic so everybody can hear. And if you don't feel comfortable asking a question in public, see me afterwards, or grab my card and feel free to email me, and I'll answer any question that you have. How many of you went to one of the town halls that the school district put on? Okay, so some of you did. The first couple of slides here are basically what the offers are, the last offers that they had when they put things through. You can see the differences here, the retirement, the end of the career bumps, there's a change there between what the union wants, what the district is offering, the compensation, where the board wants a freeze the first year, no step or lane changes, the union wants the lane changes, and then the union wants 2 steps next year where the board wants to do a stipend instead. You look at the professional development, most of that's pretty well the same. There's not huge differences in any of this, which is one reason where you watch the flex payment of $62.92 for a third of the teachers. That was actually going to be cut in half when the impasse was done last year. The board has already changed from giving back the whole $62.92. They have gone from a 1-year contract to a 2-year contract, where the union has been always wanting a 2-year contract. The union went from a 3% raise each year to now a freeze and with the lane changes and stuff. So both sides have been compromising on this. From my point of view, the board has been actually giving up more than the union has at this point, but there's room there. Honestly, my point is both sides are at fault. The board has been told for years ways that they can save money. They refuse to do it. The union now is with the economy. The board flat out doesn't have the money now. They have $1.6 million deficit spending this year. They flat out don't have the money, and the union does need to recognize that. So I said they're both at fault in this situation and where we're at right now. You can see the difference here in the cost between the 2 plans. This came from the district, so you're talking under $1 million difference here between the 2 plans. Looking at this is way too close. There never should have been a strike. This looks like a power play from the union side. Honestly, that's what it looks like to me, because they're too close. There is no reason they should have ever went out on strike, given these numbers and how close they already were. And honestly, I'll show you something in a few minutes here where I believe the administration in the district and the union are colluding, working together, and this has all been pretty much, not everything, but a lot of it's been pre-planned. This is the interesting chart they threw in last time. This is the raises based off the salary schedule versus CPI. You can see the district, the teachers have been getting huge raises for the last decade. What they didn't show you is these raises here where you have 3-4%. Those are based on the salary schedule. They are not actual. Actual is somewhere, depending on where you're on the pay schedule, is 5.5% to over 8%. So when they tell you they're only getting 4% raises, it's not true. They're a lot higher, and we can prove it. I don't have the numbers with me tonight. I didn't get a chance to. I was working on that today and just didn't get to that tonight to have those numbers. I've done them before. I can go through them again and get that to you if anybody wants it. But that's the problem with this. The board is not being totally transparent. The union is not being totally transparent and upfront with you. That's both sides are not telling you the entire truth. This is the chart that really is the one that shows why the board has about an $8 million fund balance for the Ed Fund, which is the only fund you can use for education, for teacher salaries and benefits. I know there's some signs out today that said the board has a $26 million fund balance at the end of the year. Most of that cannot be used to pay salaries and benefits. You look at the month-to-month chart here, it'd be nice, I've asked for these things for years, you have them over year. But the chart when you get into May, that's only about $2 million surplus right there. If that $2 million goes away because they overspend even more onto the contracts, then they will have to start borrowing money, which is called tax anticipation warrants, which is short-term borrowing at very high interest rates. Once you start tax anticipation warrants, you're basically on a death spiral to a referendum or to a state takeover. There's no, when you start that, it's almost impossible to get back out of. You do not want that to happen in a district, and that's why the fund balance is so important. This is what I was showing you earlier. I'm telling you about earlier. Here is Ellen Carell and Mary Garcia when she was on the board 2 years ago. There's another thread below this. They were talking about the campaign of Mary Garcia and Sue Facklum running for office, and Ellen Carell talking about it too. If you remember, 2 years ago, there was some federal stimulus money that the district got. They handed out bonuses right before Christmas. Ellen Carell, I did nothing unethical, immoral, or illegal. What I did was to ensure that the union would work with us. If I am fired, they will have to buy me out. Ellen was using the federal stimulus money to buy favors with the union, so make sure the union could work with them and help them in their elections. So they have been colluding together for the whole time. That's why I say with this, all this stuff going on right now, they're colluding again. There's no way to actually prove that right now, but my suspicion, and based on their history of what they've been done in the past, they're working together. Both sides know exactly what's going on for the most part. So I said both sides are at fault. The administration is really, really bad at in the district right now. This is the distressed home sales in District 46. You want to know what the economy is like? This was presented at the levy hearing back in December. And you can see homes sold in distress in District 46. In 2012, it was over 52%. 2011, it was over 53%. There's active properties right now that are in distress that haven't been sold yet. The number is 68%. This is that the economy around here is not good. People are losing their homes. People are losing their jobs. This is where this is the part where the union needs to be realistic and go, people can't afford it anymore. People just we cannot keep raising taxes and have the money. We cannot keep doing this. It's unsustainable. Real quick, this is for 2011, this is the highest salaries in District 46. I did not include administration because we're talking about the teacher strike right now. The administrators are above this, well above this. So yes, there's some top-heavy stuff there, but I wanted to focus on the teachers union because that's what we're dealing with right now. The number 10 was over $87,000 up to over $100,000 for a PE teacher. You know, that's kind of for a K through 8 district. That just seems very excessive. Here's the administrators here now. You'll see the lowest administrator was $81,000. It goes all the way up to Ellen Carell at over $170,000. I'm kind of running through this fast. If you want to come back to some of the slides, we can.
Can you just pop back one for a second?
Okay. Several of these people are no longer in the district. Some are, some aren't. Did you get done what you need? If you want the presentation, we can talk after. I can email you the presentation.
Okay.
And the patch may be actually posting the whole presentation. I'm not sure if you're going to post the whole thing or not, but
can't tell you right now.
So, retirees. The former superintendent, Dr. Anderson's retired at $180,000. These are all retirees. Down to retirees making over $70,000. That's higher than the average teacher salary in Grayslake. This is the scattergram. If you've never heard of a scattergram, the numbers in each of the charts tell you how many employees are on that level in the pay schedule. You can see how this breaks down. I did it by percentages so you can see how many percentages are in which lane. These are called lanes. This area here is called steps. The teachers only have to work in the district for 16 years. Then they go off schedule. We have 43 people as of 2011 that are off schedule. If you look at the contract, when they're telling you that 2.5% was what the average was, every one of those 43 people was making 4.5%. That's what they were telling everybody. Off schedule was higher than what the rest of the teachers were. So the highest paid teachers were getting bigger raises than the teachers at the bottom of the pay scale, the ones that are struggling. So this brings me to what I would like to propose. I did this last year in Zion, something very similar. This is specific to Grayslake. You have to do this specifically to each one. It's kind of out of the box thinking, different than most school districts have ever done. Zion actually did a variation of this. What they're doing, they got rid of their salary schedule. They went to a more of a corporate model where, as teachers come into the district, the younger teachers, you know this from the corporate world, when you first go in, your raises, you move up faster to try to entice you to stay there and keep the good people. Once you hit the midpoint, your raises start to slow down. That's exactly what this chart is showing. And I'm proposing a 5-year contract, not a 2. We don't need to be going through this every year. You do a 2-year contract, they're negotiating again next year, starting this all over again. We've got to end that cycle, and this brings fiscal sustainability. You can see what I did here. This year, only the people making under $47,000 get a raise, or nobody else gets a raise. So it's similar to what the board and the union have already talked about with a hard freeze, except I'd like to see the teachers at the bottom, the new teachers, actually get a raise. If you don't know the statistics, 60% of teachers leave their district within the first 5 years. 40% of them leave the profession. Some do come back, but 1 out of 4 teachers leave the profession never to return within the first 5 years they're teaching. We're losing a lot of good teachers, and the biggest reason is pay. So if you look as your chart goes up, you can see the people under $47,500, their raises gradually increase more and more. The people from $47,500 to $65,000, they start getting a little bit smaller raises. $65,000 to $80,000 get a little bit, their raises, they don't start till year 3 getting raises again. But everybody over $80,000 doesn't start till year 4. What this does is start to bring fiscal sustainability to the district. They have control over their salaries. The other thing you're doing here, by not having the step and lane, that's how they hide the raises. You get a step, you also go to the next pay schedule. That's 2 different sets of numbers. It's not the same. So that's how when you see people, they get 2 raises. It's actually 1 raise, but it's in 2 different parts, and that's how it's hidden, so you never know the truth. Now those numbers, 2.5%, 3%, in actuality it's 5.5 to 8, because the numbers are hidden. This takes rid of all of that. Makes it totally transparent. There's no way to hide the numbers anymore. The lane changes is another piece. We want to reward teachers that are going out and continue their education. But right now, when they do that, they get rewarded continually every single year because it becomes part of their salary. I would suggest moving it to a bonus structure, because when they get their master's, they get their doctorate, they get a bonus. It no longer is part of their yearly salary, so you're not continually paying that all the time, but you are rewarding them for actually getting continuing education. The next piece here is end of career salary increase. I know most of you have heard about this, but District 46 right now, you announce you're retiring, the last 4 years, you will get 6% raise. So it's compounding. It's over 25% over the last 4 years when you tell them you're going to retire. Question will come up, how do we pay for these raises? There's 3 main issues right here. One is increased state aid due to actually freezing the tax levy. If you missed the December tax levy hearing, they explained how when they froze that levy, they will actually get more money from the state. The end of the career salary bumps, we have to end those. All that's doing is shifting the taxpayer burden from here on the property tax owner to every taxpayer across the entire state. And I'll show how to show that. And health insurance is another one of our big cost drivers. as well that would take care of every one of these. This is a chart from the December levy hearing, and you can see the state aid amounts here, and you can see the huge jump coming in 2015. That is because they froze the levy. Next year, if they freeze the levy again, that chart holds true. They're basically going to lose $350,000 approximately for next school year. The following year, they gain $1.3 million. So if the board this December raises the levy, they're going to lose that $1.3 million just to get $300,000. They're losing $1 million if they raise your levy this year. This is a little bit more explanation. Going through everything. I'm not going to go through all this right here. I kind of talked about it. The couple of points that you need to remember here is the way the levy process works. It's capped every year. CPI or 5%, whichever is lower. It's not going to hit 5% for quite a while again. But they also have a rate limit. And I forgot the exact number for the district. It's a little like 3.5 or a little over 3.5. The O&M fund, which is for construction and maintenance, they're hitting that this year. They cannot levy any more in that fund. They're going to be able to levy more in these other funds. The education fund, if it doesn't hit it this year, which we will know, the district will know probably March, early March, maybe late February, they will know. If they hit that levy, if they don't hit it this year, they're going to hit it next year. They cannot levy more than that limiting rate. They will lose even more money if they hit that rate. Actually, what they did with the freezing the levy this year actually gives them more flexibility moving forward because they will have some cap room now to play with their numbers when they need to. This is what the effect of an end-of-career salary bump is. Teachers making $75,000, they use nice round numbers to make it easy. They announce they're retiring. Next year, their salary goes to $79,500. Year 2, $84,270. Year 3, oops, I forgot to change the number, $89,000. Their final year, they're making $94,000. They retire. 75% of what they were making, they're retiring at $71,000. They were making $75,000 when they were right before they decided to retire. You're going to pay them within a few years. You're going to pay them more in retirement than they did while they were working. And it's still the taxpayers, because that's the shift where every person, every taxpayer in Illinois is now paying for these teachers more to sit home than to work. That's unsustainable. We can't. That's what's driving our pension debt in Illinois. We can't continue to do this. If you haven't seen the numbers, there's over 44,000 retirees make more right now than they did while they were working. So the one question I want to say, people they'll say teachers don't get Social Security. $71,000 is what? Almost 3.5, 4 times what Social Security is. They're getting a lot better deal by not taking Social Security. People don't like the word pension spiking, but that's exactly what it is. It's artificially inflating your pension. You can call it whatever you want, but you're spiking the pension. You'll notice this chart. That top line is starting to really take off. That is because of the end-of-career salary bumps. Notice when this kind of started happening was 99. 95 is really the key. 95 is when all the pension shift. There was actually a pension shift. Most of the pensions started getting paid at the state level instead of the local level. So the school boards were now no longer negotiating with their own money. They were negotiating with the state's money. That's why these end-of-career bumps started. They were at 20%, and they shut that down about 2003, capped it at 6%. But they still have to cap that. That's not sustainable. That number cannot keep driving itself up. If you notice the number 2010, that's 1.2 billion, almost 1.3 billion there, because of the pension spiking at the end of careers. That's unsustainable for the state of Illinois, and we see that every day. Our credit rating is getting ready to get downgraded again because they can't fix the pensions. That's why they can't fix the pensions. Quick facts here. First thing I already mentioned, 1995, the pension law changed. Actually, first change was in the Con-Con in 1970. We'll get to that here in a second. Since 2001, taxpayers have contributed 230% more than the teachers to the teacher retirement system. The way that's kind of worded weird, but when you hear them say the state has not paid its money in, The state has paid 230% more than it was supposed to based on the 1995 law. What they didn't count in is all of the benefits and increases they've given out to employees since 1995 that they didn't fund. That's the underfunding. If we just kept what we had in 1995 and even 1970, you wouldn't have a pension liability right now. They'd have a surplus. Less than 1% of state employees worked 40 years. Except for the Social Security, most average state pensions right now, people retiring now, not from the past. There's some in the past, yeah, they were not anywhere near what it is now. 4 times Social Security. Sick leave. Teachers, other employees can accrue sick leave. They have used 132,000 years of sick leave that they didn't work. They used sick leave. They used it for their retirement. We're now paying for that in their retirement. 44,000 retirees have pensions greater than what they did in their career. The teacher pay here in Illinois is actually, if you haven't looked, where our pay is higher than most other states around us. We are ranked #1 for teachers. A couple of years ago, Waukegan. Everybody knows Waukegan. They don't have the greatest schools. They had 200 openings for teachers. 5,000 teachers applied for those jobs. There are tons of teachers here looking for work right now. If teachers had the same salary and pension just as Wisconsin as a number, we would be saving $4 billion a year, and that would make the extra pension payments right there. But if the pension rules were the same as 1970 when the pension guarantee went in, we'd have a surplus right now. We would not be in the debt we're in right now. And as the teachers' unions have given Illinois politicians, both parties, $50 million since 1995. They're buying the legislature who continues to give them benefits over and over again that we are going to have to pay for. Healthcare. Here's a couple of quick scenarios here. The board did bring us some people in this year. They were told about this, like I said, almost 5 years ago. The savings they could do by just changing their healthcare plan. Just going out to competitive bid, the estimated savings was $300,000 the first year. Within 3 to 5 years, they'd have over $5 million in savings. That'd be easy for the contract right now when their difference is less than $1 million. If they went to self-insured, the first year would be a little more difficult. It's only $100,000 savings because they have to get that started up and stuff. After that, they're looking at like $1 million a year in savings. This is where the 6292 comes in that I mentioned earlier. That was originally given to teachers so they could buy their own health insurance. There's a loophole around that because they started giving that to the teachers as taxable income, not pre-tax income. They do not have to use that for medical expenses. That's one change they should put in immediately, that if they're going to continue that 6292, that needs to be used only for medical expenses, so it's going for the purpose it was meant to go for. And if they go to a self-insured plan, that 6292 should go away because they would be able to have better insurance by having everybody in the district there. So instead of having 200 and some teachers, they'd have over 300 teachers on the plan. It saves them tremendously on their rates and would cut the cost of their health insurance benefits like we showed. So, quick question here, who is really raising your property taxes? For the last few years, everybody kept saying it was the assessments. Well, it's not the assessments, it's the levy, it's the taxing bodies. As this chart shows, when your assessment goes up, your levy goes up, your taxes are going up. If your assessment goes up, but your levy does not, your taxes don't go up. If your assessment drops, your levy doesn't go anywhere, your taxes aren't going anywhere. The assessment can stay the same, but if your levy goes up, your taxes are going up. You've got to go to your taxing bodies and talk to them. Like the two most important meetings of the year are their budget hearing and their levy hearings. Go ask almost every single school district in here. Grayslake is one of them. District 46 does this exact same thing. They budget for a tax increase every single year. They never look at how much they need to spend. They look at how much money they can get, and that's what they do their budget for. I'm not going to go through these. This kind of goes into more detail of the assessment process. If you want to really look into this, I can take you through this more. But that's basically my presentation. And so if anybody has any questions, you're welcome to come up here and ask. I'd like you to come up here and ask so you can have the microphone so everybody can hear. And feel free to ask any question you want. If you need some extra details, whoever wants to come on up. Real quickly here. I went through the teacher's contract just to see what's there. You can take up to 4 days off for union business. The union president can take up to 20 days off. We're paying for them to do union business. They get 16 days a year sick leave. They can build that up to 340 days. 2 years of their school time. So 177 days is their school year. So they're basically building up 2 years. They can retire 2 years early just on sick leave. They can also get paid for their sick leave, 50% of it as well. Salaries paid over 20 or 24-month installments, that's up to them. They also get extra pay for extracurriculars, for summer school. Life insurance, they get up to $20,000 life insurance paid for by the district. We went through the 6292 already. The teachers do pay the majority of their own retirement. But 65% of the school districts actually pay their retirement for their teachers. Grayslake is one. The teachers pay their 9.4% or 9.2% is in here. Let's see what else was there. They get scheduled meetings. They can also get paid for their work day is 7 clock hours. They actually only work, teaching instructional time is only 6 hours. They get 20 minutes for lunch, they rotate in 20 minutes for recess, and then they get 20 minutes for planning. That's in their scheduled day. So they rotate, so they have a 40-minute schedule of lunch and planning time. They can use how they want, but instructional time in Grayslake is only 6 hours a day. So does anybody have any questions? Can you come up so everybody can hear?
Well, really, my question, I'm a just concerned parent and wanting to get informed about this particular issue that's kind of going on right now. Obviously, I understand, at least I tend to understand where you're kind of coming from, but is there anyone here kind of from the teacher side or understands at least some of their points, just so I can kind of get better informed? So I don't know if there's anyone who understands at least what they're, you're raising a couple of points here, which totally makes sense, and I understand a lot of what you're saying, but I'd love to kind of just get the counterpoint to it. Is there anyone here that can talk to it?
We can run back to their offer real quick, too. That's the teachers union offer compared to the district offer. So I did notice in the paper today where the union stated that the mediator had come up with a proposal that the union accepted, but the board did not accept. We don't know the details of that. My suggestion to that is real simple. The union looks like they want to negotiate in public now. Let's do it. Let's have a public meeting with the board and the union sitting in the room so we can sit there and watch, and then we can all find out what's really going on, because right now we really don't know all the details exactly. We don't know all the details of what's going on. And we should. We're going to be paying for this. And if anybody has any more details other than what's up here, that would be great.
How come you didn't run for school board when it was time to run for school board?
Is it too late?
Yes, it's too late except as a write-in. There's lots of reasons. I've been watching District 46 for about 8 years now. And when I started watching the school board, because when they had a referendum, I started asking questions. Had a school board candidate actually ask me today a little bit about how I got started, and I told him. 8 years ago when I moved into this area, the district was having their fourth referendum in a row that the other three hadn't passed. So I started doing some research, started asking questions, sitting down, was looking on, okay, what information do you have to have? So I did a few FOIAs just to look at the teacher's contract, look at the administrator's contract, figure out, okay, do they need the money or not? I mean, that's really the key when you first do that. 2 weeks later, because I was asking questions, my website got hacked. On the pro-referendum forum that I was also asking questions on, they put my name, my wife's name, my kid's name, the fact at the time I was actually home, I just started homeschooling at that time. I'm happy to tell anybody why I'm doing that too. And I realized there was some problems in this district, so I started researching. I've been researching ever since. Right now, I would say I have a reputation because they tried to ostracize me and bully me into being quiet and going away. I'm not doing that. I'm not going away. I don't like bullies. So I continue from the outside because I know I can get up here and say stuff that a board member cannot say.
Right.
And I can do things that they cannot do, but I can be of great assistance to any board member that wants my help. I can help them do stuff that they can't get done and get stuff to the public that they can't do as a city board member. I feel like I'm more effective on the outside than I am on the inside because it would hamstring what I can do too much. So that's kind of the answer to the question.
Okay. I've got one more question.
Okay.
Our teachers are not the lowest paid teachers.
No, they're not.
Okay. And now, this is for everybody. What is the strike trying to accomplish? The only one that's really hurting is our children. And I think we're all in agreement with
Yes,
this.
absolutely.
It should be about money. It should be about our children.
Absolutely, it should be. That's one thing I would actually like to see. I did actually run for state senate last year, and I would actually like this. One of the things I would like to see happen is, so teachers provide a valuable service. We have firemen and we have police officers also provide a valuable service. Firemen and police officers cannot strike. Teachers should not be allowed to strike either. They should be able to work. There are instances where I could say, if the union there was really something going on in the district, there ought to be a way of either some grievance procedure or somebody from the outside that could come in and say, hey, this is completely wrong, and give the union a little bit more initiative there. But in general, unions have it great. The unions up here, the teachers, the districts are great. And for the most part, there is no reason they should be able to strike under any normal circumstances right now. So, gentleman back here was first, and I'll come back to you.
Yeah, let me ask you, what is the reason that we don't go out for competitive bid, when it comes to health insurance and other things like that? Why won't they allow that?
Union, it's part of the negotiations.
And they just say, we're not going to allow that?
Pretty much, that's pretty much it.
How does that benefit the union if they're not allowed to go out and shop for health insurance?
Right now, it's the 6292 that 138 teachers get that they don't have to use for health insurance benefits. I don't know how many. I don't know how many can use it for health insurance like they're supposed to, or how many don't. But the way it's set up, they don't have to. So it's just an extra added benefit to their salary right now. And that was one of the sticking points a few months ago that the board gave in on.
The problem with you getting on the board is that it's not just you, it takes four.
Yeah, it takes four.
Okay, and that's what's happening to our fine gentleman on the board right now.
Yes.
He's getting laid away because no one will vote with him to get the job done.
Right, there's a 4-3 swing on the board right now, and the four people that vote with the superintendent pretty much do whatever she says do right now. The other 3 have been fighting for us. Same thing, yeah, Michael Carbone has been getting ripped in the papers over and over again because he stood up and started asking questions and started doing stuff. Most people don't know, the first 2 years he was on the board, that was never a problem. He actually was he had helped with the finance committee, with one of the parents, Shannon Smigelski, who is now on the board by herself, that they got the finance committee going, they got the community involved, they started finding cuts. I think at the time, at 2011, they had already found cuts of like $4 or $5 million. But then there was an election in 2011. The majority of the people, as you can see by the emails and some emails that have been released before, there was actually some criminal activity on that board of that sitting for majority, and they viciously attacked. They made up stuff about Mike Carbone and some of the other candidates to try to stop them from getting there, and it's been that way ever since for 2 years. It is a leadership failure problem with the superintendent and the administration. I mean, we've had what? 5 business managers now in the last 6 years? Or is it 6 in 5 years? It's insane. And it all comes from a lack of leadership in that administration right now. So,
Well, I wanted to agree with the gentleman over there talking about the kids that are suffering the most. The people that are suffering the most are the children. I mean, I can speak to you as well because I have 3 kids. I have 3 boys myself, and one of them, and my youngest, has autism. And basically, I mean, these teachers, they do a lot. They do a lot for my son, with special needs. I mean, 40 years ago, there were no teachers that could help a child with autism. Today, there are like many teachers that are just ready, willing, and able to like fit a kid with special needs and put them in the mainstream. And I mean, I'm grateful, and I'm grateful for that.
Right.
I mean, my dad, unfortunately, his oldest son has severe autism. He didn't have that. His doctor said that the reason why your kid is autistic is because you don't love your kid enough. And I know that's nonsense.
Right.
That's nonsense. But I mean, and I just believe that these teachers just do more than just it's more than just teaching reading, math, science, and social studies and whatnot. It's just that you got to reach out.
The district has some really good teachers, and that's why they need to shift from this automatic pay raises every year to something that actually starts rewarding the teachers for doing the job that they can do. And we've got some good teachers, we've got some bad teachers. I mean, that's obvious. One just got fired here in December. So, or November, I forgot which. It was November or December they voted to actually release the teacher. So,
if we could return really quickly to the point regarding the health care, I don't recall competitive health, the competitive process of bidding being part of the bargaining agreement. And my understanding is that Corral actually did put out 4 competitive bids at this point, reporting a $300,000 saving. So why are we locked down a point here that we can't do because the union's blocking?
They did not put out competitive bids. They brought in some vendors to discuss with them. They went to the union to talk to the union about doing competitive bids, and the union said, no, we'll deal with that during our process here, which has pretty much killed it based on everything else that's going on here. So no, they never did actually go to competitive bid, and they've been told this exact same thing for 5 years at least, and they have done nothing except continue on down the road the same guy. There is one caveat in the contract though with the health care. If they can provide the same or better coverage, cheaper for the teachers, then they can go out and do that. The district has never taken the initiative to go do that.
That's an issue.
It is an issue. As you said, the boards has a complete failure here too. They failed at their job. The union's failing at what they're doing. Both sides can share all the blame here.
Because this 6292 or whatever the number is does not have to include those individuals when it goes out to the ultimate people who would choose to accept that health care. These individuals can continue.
They can, but it affects the rates that they can go out competitively bid because it cuts the number of teachers by 1/3. And from the presentations, they actually talk about our district. Without that 1/3, the rates are going to be higher, which would end up preventing it from happening. Because actually our district, they said our district is actually very unhealthy compared when they go out to do rates based on only having 2/3 of the teachers being able to be on the new plan.
But we don't have that part yet, do we?
No. No, and that's the board failing. The board and administration's failure.
Okay, pardon me, I'm a scientist by trade. Now, wouldn't it make sense that if you are a quote-unquote teacher, can't we work with other districts locally and get, instead of like 300 teachers, get like maybe a couple thousand teachers in for a health insurance plan and leverage?
Yes, they do that already. There are some consortiums out there, so there are some healthcare consortiums. I know the district did change consortiums one time, back right at when Dr. Anderson left and Superintendent Corral came in. That happened then, but it hasn't anything has happened since then. But when you go look at some of those consortiums, they're actually higher. And when you go to a consortium, a lot of times you don't have to competitively bid those. And dig into the finances of those consortiums on energy, waste, a lot of these other things. A lot of those are run by ex-superintendents.
I'm really glad that we're talking about healthcare here because I think one elephant in the room that we need to discuss is Obamacare.
Yes.
And what will happen if the costs are deferred, not only to the state, but also to the districts, and what kind of socio-economic ramifications that could have.
Right, I know the District 46 plan is one of the highest ones around in the area. They're not the highest, but they're one of the highest. I don't think, I've asked that question multiple times, what is going to be the effect? Will they be penalized for having a Cadillac plan? It appears they will be, but nobody can give me a number on how much that is. Woodland District 50 did go and do a study and looked at their health care plan. They've got to make serious changes. Their health care right now costs them, I believe it's $10 million a year to insure their district. they're going to get hit with $1 million a year penalty because of Obamacare. So they have got some serious changes they've got to make to their plan, and District 46 better be doing that research too, and they're not, because I've asked the question. They're not looking at that yet, and that's another expense. That's coming if they don't do something quickly.
Change the subject away from healthcare. One thing you didn't touch on or mention was tenure. And maybe you can talk about, the benefit as a teacher of tenure. Is it 5 years or 2 years or whatever? And it also ties in with the right to strike. And I don't get this where you have the right to strike, but I don't, as an employee, don't have the right to fire you. You're tenured. You're guaranteed your job. All you got to do is show up and not do something stupid. But as a federal employee, it's illegal to go on strike.
Right.
Reagan did that in the 80s with Patco when they went on strike, and that was a legal thing. You just, as a federal employee, you cannot go on strike.
Right.
So I just can't get over that you've got tenure and then the right to go on strike.
Yeah.
So
tenure, there was a study about 3 years ago. Scott Reeder did it downstate. The hidden cost of tenure. He did a study, went through, it took him a while to go through the study, and I believe the number was about 97% of teachers can never be fired no matter what they do, basically. What they do, what he found out was, they will fire about 3% for very, very egregious things, but most of the time what they do is they will have a settlement agreement. They won't put it on your record what you did, and they'll just let you walk to another district as long as you resign. And that happens all over the state. He found that out. I forgot what the exact number he found, but tenure is a huge problem from that goes. From the plus side of it, though, is when you get tenure, then you are protected. So you can't have an administrator come in and just start firing people for no reason just because he doesn't like you. There has to be a reason behind it. But the law right now favors so much the union side of it, it does actually hurt the district. I'll give you one example in Grayslake. 3 years ago, I've been watching, that's why I'm watching this, because the teacher just got fired again. About 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, they fired a teacher in December. They talked about how they went through 9 months of remediation. So that's basically, they went through almost a whole school year. Into December, they fired the teacher. January, they hired that teacher back because they were going to file a grievance. It was cheaper for them to keep that teacher, bad teacher, in the classroom till summertime and then riff them and not bring them back next year. So you had about, a year and a half, almost 2 years of a bad teacher sitting in the classroom, and there was the district, hands were tied and could do nothing about it. There are some new SB 7 a couple of years ago starting to change that. They are going to have to take into account some of the merit stuff. When they're doing RIFs, that all the districts have to come up with a plan where they can actually get rid of some people with tenure a little bit easier. It's not as far as it should be because the districts have total control over the plan now, so it's going to be part of negotiations, most likely, how that's going to work. So, but there still needs to be some more work in that level at the state. That has to happen at the state level. Any other questions?
Okay, go back to your levy freeze slide and re-explain that, please.
All right, this is the state aid projections, and I pulled out the one where you freeze the levy. If you did not freeze the levy, the other slide, it's in the December levy here, it's in the board package, you can go look it up. There will be a $1.4 million deficit next year if you raise the levy. By not raising the levy, what it is, say 2012, they're going to get approximately $7.7 million. 2013 is going to be 6.3. 2014, 5.8, so yes, there's going to be still deficit spending in 2014. 2015 is when they get the extra $1.3 million because they froze the levy this time. It takes state aids off by a year, so it's going to take 2 years for them to get that, actually get that money. And the formula will allow them to get an extra $1.3 million. And that's where the difference is. And they will, and if they, as is right now, they would not be deficit spending in 2015. They would have $189,000 surplus. 2016, that surplus goes to, I believe, $1.4 million. So
aside from the caveat that the state pays their bills, where's the problem?
The only downside to this is really relying on the state, but the state has a consistent record of paying a certain amount as long as you go into it knowing they're only going to pay 85, 89%. You can do that. The only thing you'll have is, the one caveat I do with this, the way they're doing it, this only works when the assessment is dropping. If the assessment is actually increasing, this formula does not work it reverses itself. So this only works in times, bad economic times, exactly like it is right now. That's when this works.
We're pretty safe there.
Yes, for another couple of years. Probably about another 3 to 4 years before the assessment started increasing, because they use a 3-year average. So minimum, it's going to be another 3 years. So
what's the assumption on these figures too? Are you assuming this based on the current contract or either side's particular offer?
It is based on the current budget only. So it does not take into effect the current contract in board side or the union side whatsoever. That they did this based on the current budget. So this is going to change slightly depending on what the contract is. Yes, the number, well, the surplus or whatever deficit spending will change.
So is the figures that you have there in 2015, the 7.1 million, is that 85%?
It's I believe based on 89%. And the way the state's going, it looks like, well, they've already introduced progressive income tax, and there's all sorts of stuff that they're looking at doing to help the state make more money, but of course we get to all pay for it, so. So either way, we're paying for it no matter what.
Those estimates that you have up there, are you taking into consideration the fact that, let's say, the village of Grayslake or around the Grayslake School District, let's say we bring some large businesses into this area. I mean, in a way that would basically that would kind of shift the burden a little bit.
I believe their projections, this is from PMA. PMA does the district's projections as their financial planner. They do 5-year projections. I believe they're only counting on like less than 1% new construction based on the economy. They're not counting on really having any new construction for the next several years right now. So yes, if you could get Village of Grayslake or somebody to get more business in here, be a huge help. It actually helps shift the burden to the businesses and off the property tax owners. Right now, yeah, we're considered a bed and breakfast community, and we don't have a lot of industrial, a lot of business to take up the property taxes.
We had an assessor in office that was doing his job, and we'd have a little easier time too.
Yes. Yeah, there is some problems with the assessor in Avon Township. If you do some research, there is a problem there. He's not assessing everything correctly, which actually would help everybody as well. So you might want to do some research before the election in April on the Avon Township slates.
You mentioned that Waukegan had several teachers ready to fill positions. Is that possible here? Do we have teachers willing to work for what we can afford or what the board's willing to pay?
You cannot replace teachers doing a strike in Illinois. You can hire substitutes, but those subs have to be willing to cross the picket line. And from my experience, most of those subs are going to be blacklisted. A lot of those subs will not cross the picket line because they know they will never get a job in the future. If you go out and talk to the teachers, you talk to the younger teachers away from the strike, you talk to them personally, a lot of those young teachers do not want to be on the picket line, they do not want to be on strike, but the union leaders are making them do it. Union leaders have a lot of powers. Yeah, the younger teachers are actually victims of their own union in a lot of cases, and Grayslake unfortunately has a very, very strong union. So unfortunately, I would bet that a lot of teachers are being threatened right now to make sure they're going along with this strike.
And you know that how?
From following other school districts?
Really?
Yes. Oh, yes.
The vote
yes.
was 304. The vote was 300.
Oh, yeah. Same thing in Zion.
20 to 3, and I am not under pressure to be on strike right now from anybody.
Well, I've seen this in every district. You go up to Zion. Zion had this exact same problem. Other districts. Teachers call me. If you'd be surprised at how many teachers actually call me and give me information, so I know a lot of what's going on. A lot of stuff I can't release everything that's going on, but yes, it is happening.
And you think they're going to believe you over a teacher in this district?
No, the teachers are going to have to talk amongst themselves and do that. Yes, absolutely, the teachers have to do it.
I teach in this district. I am on strike.
If you can share more, about the offer and stuff, what's going on, that'd be
I
great.
have nothing to say to you.
Okay.
I genuinely would like information.
And I go to Grayslake teachers on Facebook. They'll give you all the information you need.
The president of our school board was the president of the teachers union for another district for 8 years.
Yeah, Mary Garcia was, 4 years, and so she was the president in Northbrook District 30. 2 years ago, and then she lost the election in 2011, and she was the one in those emails colluding with Superintendent Carell the entire time to help try to get those incumbents elected again, and with Sue Facklum trying to get those. Thankfully, none of the incumbents on the school board this year, none of them are running again. So there will be entirely new 4 people going onto the school board in April, and there's 5 candidates. So do some research, check them all out, look them up, and get them. I invited them all here tonight. None of them could come tonight. One of them actually called me. He actually told me the truth. Everybody else was like, there was something going on. They couldn't come. One of them actually called me and said, you know, with this political climate, I just don't feel I should be there. And that's fine. I totally agree. He was open. He was honest with me and told me that. We're going to sit down. I'll be sitting down with all the school board members, candidates, and talking to them at some point as well. Because that's what we have to do. All sides have to come together and talk. I know, well, we've got a teacher here. I know some of the teachers talk about what I do and stuff like that. They don't like what I do. I'm not really worried about that because I'm still going to be up here.
The union does.
Well, I'm still going to be up here trying to protect their jobs because I know that if they get a contract that the district cannot afford, lots of young teachers are going to get laid off, and we have to prevent that. So I will do everything I can, whether the union likes it or not. I'm still going to fight for the teachers' jobs, no program cuts, and to make sure at some point they all get raises at some point too when we can afford it.
Is there any way you can get rid of their anger before they go back to school? Because I'm quite concerned about it.
That's going to take personal conversations. It really is all about the relationships and personal conversations.
I got news for you. The tax rate of this township is going to be over 12% this next year.
Yes, not surprised.
That's off the charts.
Yeah, which means we may cap out. Just D46 may cap out this. Well, they would have probably capped out if they hadn't have frozen the levy. By frozen the levy, that actually helps them this year, so they didn't cap out as well.
It costs you $2,500 more to live in a $250,000 house to live here than it does in Vermont.
Well, Lake County in general is just throwing money at education.
Yeah.
We are Illinois in our schools.
That's 70% of your tax bill.
Yeah.
Goes to the schools, and we are one of the highest tax towns.
You are the highest.
Right.
Yeah, we are the highest tax town.
Zion is higher.
Zion's higher. North Chicago.
Okay.
We used to be the Avon Township used to be #1. Now they're #3, I believe.
Yeah.
Zion is definitely higher. North Chicago, I believe, is another one that's higher. But Lake County has the highest property taxes in the Midwest for, I believe, the last 4 or 5 years. It is number 14 to 17, depending on what chart you look at, highest property taxes in the entire country.
And however, our schools in the country, Grayslake, I'll give you, we have a good school.
Exactly.
But Lake County in general, the more money, we are not, as far as the nation ranked, we're like down.
And all this tax stuff, it's driving people out of their houses because they can't afford their houses.
None of us are really racist.
Right.
I mean, I am permanently disabled. All right, I get fixed income every
I'm
month.
not asking for.
Every month.
I'm asking for.
Like.
You're on strike. You are asking.
I asked for a pay freeze. Go read the information.
Well, that's
We agreed.
But at the end of the day, it should not be about money. It should be about our children who need the education. It's not about money here.
If the union
Teachers are being greedy, is what they're being.
well, it's the union. It's not all the teachers.
All right,
It's not all the teachers.
I recant my statement.
But if the union had wanted a pay freeze for the next 2 years, there'd be no strike right now.
Exactly. And
There
if we
would be no
look,
strike right
they've
now.
gotten their raises.
We have 3 children that
Over the past 6 years, they've gotten their raises.
Yes, they have. I think they said, somebody the other night said like the last 31 years there's been a raise for the teachers.
They got bonuses.
They got bonus. But during the last referendum time, they actually, Dr. Anderson claimed that they did a pay freeze for 3 years. Those were some of the highest raises the teachers ever saw was during the years of the pay freeze.
miraculously, when we got rid of Anderson, there was a...
Yes, there was money, all the programs came back, everything after him. There was a lot of, a lot boils down to who is the administration in the district. Unfortunately, we don't have a good administration right now.
I mean, some of my son's former teachers are here at this meeting tonight. And you know, if it wasn't for those teachers, my son would be, who is 6 years old, who has learning issues.
Yeah.
And you know, it shouldn't be yes, it should be about dollars and cents, but it shouldn't be everything about dollars and cents.
Right. We have some really good teachers in Grayslake. I mean, we don't have all of them good. Therefore, there's not always good teachers. But they're striking right now. It is over the money. If they wanted to pay freeze, there would not be a strike right now. It's plain and simple. It's that easy. The district, if the union wanted to agree on the pay freeze for the next 2 years, strike's over.
Let me ask you, if you have the administrators that take up, they're the highest paid officials in the school system here, what percentage of the budget are they as opposed to the teachers? And do they have the same contract with us as the teachers union does?
They each have the administrators each have their own contract that they negotiate individually. So they each have under contract. The number of, I don't know the percentage of that number is, but based on having 12 to 15 administrators versus having 360 teachers, the percentage of going into the teachers and stuff is much higher. If you go back and look at the levy hearing meetings, you will see that the business person there stated, because she was asked, that every year when their taxes go up, they keep asking for about $1.5 million every single year in the levy for their increase. They get about $750,000. They asked the business administrator. She agreed. Every bit of that money is going to salaries and benefits every year. Every time your tax is going up, virtually every bit of that is going to salary and benefit increases, and that's unsustainable, and that's why the district is in the financial shape it's in, and why we're in this situation here right now.
Yeah, I've been to a couple of budget hearings with you as mayor, and guess what? We were the only people there.
Yeah, it's been that time. We've been the only ones there at times. District 127, I went to one. They held a budget approval hearing on Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve. There were 2 of us there.
But now, what about the drop-off in enrollment here? There was, in the last meeting, I heard there was drop-off in enrollment, and they're talking about closing one of the schools.
Yes.
Why can't they kind of hasten that and maybe...
It takes a while. There's a whole bunch of steps that you have to go through. Again, there's a lot of state regulations. You have to go there. Unfortunately, there's too many state regulations, in my opinion. Too many federal regulations, in my opinion, that cause them to go through that they can't do that. If they had looked at this a few years ago, when they built Park School, was one of the questions I asked them, because I've seen this before in other school districts in another state before I moved to Illinois. The population is never going to continue increasing. I said to ask them, why don't you build Park out to the full 1,400 instead of the 1,000 that you're doing, and look at going ahead and closing one of your older schools that didn't have air conditioning stuff. Go ahead and do that. They were like, oh no, never. We're not going to do that. We're going to be growing forever. The trend's reversed. Now they're having to sit down and look at closing a school when they had this option 6 years ago. Again, it's a failure of leadership at the administration level and a failure to plan for the future.
Well, who holds them responsible for their mistakes?
The boards and the voters. The voters have to elect good board members who will hold the administration accountable.
I have one silly question. Because I've noticed that the lottery and that keeps going up. Out of curiosity, if the lottery goes for education, is that all on the state level then?
Yes, that's all at the state level. When they pass the lottery, the one thing, if you go back and watch the numbers, every state's done this exact same thing virtually. Yeah. They pass the lottery saying it's all going to education.
Sure.
Fine. They put all that money from the lottery into education. All the money they were spending in education, they now spend somewhere else. So it doesn't actually increase the education funds at all. It's a shell game. And the state's good at the shell game. Look what we're doing. Look where we're at.
Speaking of re-electing board members, I'm a little lost on this. 4 of them are stepping down, is that correct?
4 of them are up for re-election. They are not running again.
Okay. And can they change their minds?
At this point, no. The files, everything is set. The only thing somebody else could do now is run as a write-in candidate, and that's virtually impossible with a contested race with 5 people running for 4 slots. It's almost impossible to run a write-in campaign.
So are all the names in that are running?
Yes.
And how many are running?
5.
And they only need 4, is that correct?
Yes. And look at these spring elections, the consolidated elections. Last time was 14.5% in Grayslake. It's ridiculous the number of what you have to win a small consolidated election. 60 to 80%. If other 80% turn out, if 20% extra turned out, you could change every single election in these consolidated elections. People don't vote in the consolidated elections, and that's a problem too. That's why we end up in the situation we're in with board members that are not held accountable.
When is the consolidated election?
April 9th.
Can you try to change, so Mike Carbone cannot?
No. Nope.
It's a shame too, they ran.
Stand.
I'm sad too.
I'm Lennie Jarratt, and I just want to thank that teacher actually for coming. And she may really hate us, and maybe she doesn't, but I just wanted to say thank you for coming out of guts to actually say you were a teacher here. And I also want to say that I don't know why, and I wish you could hear me, and not close me off because you don't like me, but it isn't about the teachers. I mean, you have got a room full of people that appreciate you as teachers.
Yes.
But it's about the money. The money. That's really all it's about.
Every year we have to learn to live with less and less. I mean, and I have 2 degrees too. I mean, you know, I can't just go to my employer and go on strike and say, I'm not going to work today, give me money. I'd be fired.
I went out to the strike line this morning specifically, and I asked Diane Elfring, the union president, and for her to bring Jim Pergander, if they'd be willing to come. I also invited the school district officials as well, and none of them are here because we have to have a dialogue with them. That is the only way that's the way we're going to get through this. And I'm glad the teacher came. She's willing to come out and speak up and talk to us. But we got to do that. We have to be able to talk across the line. We got to start doing that. Gentlemen, here to question first, and I'll come right back to you.
So, thank you for your presentation. I learned more than I thought I would in this, and you probably did a good job increasing the blood pressure of a lot of people. So, the question I have is, we're in the midst of a strike right now. What influence can we have in anything? Is there any? And
yes.
If so, what are recommendations?
Yes.
Well, there's 2 easy recommendations. Same thing when I was helping some people up in Zion last year. The community asked me to go up there and help them when they had their strike last January. There's 2 things you can do. Contact the board members. Tell them, give them your feelings, tell them what you want to do.
Do we have a list and their phone numbers?
It's on the district website. I can get it for you too. Actually, if you've signed up for the email list over there, I'll make sure I include every board member's and Superintendent Carell's email address on that, and I'll send everybody an email with that information so you've got it. The other thing the residents of Zion did, that it's up to you whether you want to do this or not. It really is, because depending on the level of what you're facing out there and how strong the union wants to be, you may see some retribution, and I have seen this in the past during the referendum years here in this district. The residents of Zion, every morning from 7 to 8 o'clock, they went out, stood across from the teachers, and did their own picket. That strike lasted, well, that was Wednesday night we held the town hall. Thursday morning, Friday morning they were up there. Sunday night they held another town hall. Instead of the 50 people they had the first night, they had over 200. Teachers were there. Teachers got to listen to the community. Monday, they settled the strike. It was over. So that's how you can have an effect. The community has to get activated, has to talk to the board, and if you want to go out there and protest the strike yourself, get some other friends and go out there, yes, it is putting you in a very vulnerable position, and I've seen it. I've personally dealt with the threats that have come out of this district. So I've dealt with that. I've had to go to the police over threats that have come out of this district. So, you know, if you're going to do it, you better have a thick skin, be prepared, because they will demonize you. You go read the Grayslake patch, you'll see all the demonization out there. It's crazy.
Actually, I read it today, and I'm baffled completely. I keep thinking, I'm praying that I'm looking at what union people are writing. I pray to God I'm not sending my daughter to school with teachers that are on that website. I just hope it's the...
There's a lot of union members on there. There's some spouses on there. I had an internet stalker for years. I finally discovered who it was. He's the husband of a teacher in the school district. So, I mean, I've dealt with this. I've seen it. I mean, it's there. Whether everybody wants to believe it, it is there because I've dealt with it personally. So, back there real quick, Chip.
Yeah, I was at the November tax levy meeting last year. I guess the question that I'm still trying to figure out, there was a statement at that meeting that stated, you know, if we were to go bankrupt because of the unsustainability of funding the budget, there was a statement that the state may have to come in and step in and take over. Now,
Yes.
If our district were to, let's look at the worst case scenario, were to go that far, you know, we're paying 12% annually on taxes on our under, you know, on our low, down in the, you know, dirt properties. How would that scenario work? I mean, would the union at that point be either dissolved or, you know, like
no, the union's not dissolved. Well, we have the example, Round Lake.
I mean, it was bankrupt. United went bankrupt in the union.
Right.
I mean,
Well, school districts can't go bankrupt. The state will come in and take them over. This happened in Round Lake. They went through this. Basically, they send in a finance authority that has full control over the district. They will renegotiate every single contract, all the bonds. They will go through. They have the authority. It's like bankruptcy, but it's run by the state, a state authority, and they have total control of your district for as long as it takes to get you financially stable again. Round Lake just came out of being under the state watch, and based on a meeting I went to Monday night, they're very likely heading back there because they have to restructure because they haven't made AYP in some schools in over a decade. It's ridiculous what they're doing over there right now. They're destroying the district from within over there again right now. North Chicago and East St. Louis both were taken over this year by the state. So we'll see how they go. But when the state takes over, they will raise taxes. They will do whatever it takes to get everything back on a financial stable. They don't care what the public thinks. They're going to do whatever they think is right and whatever they can do financially to get it back going. So yes, you do not want a state takeover totally. Round Lake, actually, if they'd have brought in the right people, it might have been a very good thing for them long term. It helped them for several years, but now they've got, again, looks like the wrong people in charge, and they're going back right down the wrong path again from where they just got out of.
So you mentioned of the 7 board members, it's a 4 against 3 vote. Do we know exactly who's voting on which side and who we should be sending our emails?
You will know based on the board meetings, but in the contract, everything is behind the closed doors. We will not know until it's over. But right now, you know, just look at the track record. Pretty much the majority of the time, Carbone, Smigelski, and Evans kind of vote together. Facklum, Soros, Weinert, and Millington all vote together, and they do pretty much whatever Superintendent Carell tells them to do. That's kind of what's happening right now. That's the 4-3 split, and it's not pretty because the majority doesn't half the time care what the minority says. They don't even care. They don't even listen to them half the time, even though they're the ones in there. They were fighting for they knew about this, getting the more money with the property taxes by freezing the property taxes. They were the ones that had the community involved, finding the waste and the cuts in the district, saving the district over $7 million now. The minority people, they were the ones doing all of that, and the majority every time still ignores them and tries to put them down and stuff and prevent them from getting anything done. Yet they're still working and still getting things done.
Do all of them live in the district? Or?
Yes, you have to live in the district to be on the school board.
And what about, do most of the teachers live in the district?
I don't know the percentage. I don't know if the other teacher back there knows. I do know, based on 2011, there's about 600 current or teachers that live in Grayslake 46, whether they work here or live here in the district. They may work in other school districts or retired teachers. There's about 600 teachers that live in the district.
I'm sorry, I defer.
A question I had is this, I know that most of the school districts are supported by property tax revenue.
Yes.
But would it be safe to say that would there be any other means of governmental revenue to help fund the schools other than property taxes? Because I know that in other states, I mean, they don't use property tax revenue. Right. What's wrong with this picture?
There's pluses and minuses whichever way you go. There was a few years ago HB 750, which was pretty much a tax swap where they wanted to do some sales taxes and do a abatement back so the property taxes weren't so high. There was another plan that wanted to go like Michigan that wanted to totally get away from property taxes and just go sales taxes. There's lots of different avenues out there. Unfortunately, the drawback to a lot of those is the revenue starts to shift up and down a lot more quickly, where the property tax model, it actually is a lot more stable, but it's a lot more punitive on the property tax owners. It's not good for the property tax owners, but for the taxing bodies, the property tax system, they love it.
again, to add on to that too, there are other sources, and they're
Yes.
looking at grant writers coming in and
Yes.
potentially looking for private source grants and things like that.
Right.
That's just a follow on to that. I really don't have prepared the time that I've been sitting here what I want to say, so there's going to be a little stream of consciousness going here. From my perspective, in my own little world, I have 3 dogs in this fight. 1, I'm a resident in this district. And 2, the second, I guess this goes hand in hand, I have children in the district. And 3, I have a spouse who's employed in the district. Now, I know when it comes to tough economic times that one can't automatically turn around and say, give me a raise. And if people want to have the raise argument, they're talking to the wrong guy. I'm a federal employee. I'm on a 3-year pay freeze right now. That's something that I have to deal with. However, we're dealing with individuals here, 340 some odd of them. I'm not certain how many of them. Well, every one of them contributes to the livelihood of that family. People need that to keep going. So is it unreasonable for them to ask for increases? No, it's not. It certainly isn't. And then when we start looking at fixes that could be there, we're looking at the levy freeze, which is perhaps a Band-Aid, not a fix. We look at the competitive bids for healthcare. The money's there. Can you fault them for saying, listen up? Money is here. Wire your head and your rear end together. Get out there. Get the money. And again, I'm glad that you're presenting what you're presenting here, because it's showing that there are options available. It does not appear that we are on the brink of Armageddon, that people have been making it out to be at this point. There are options out there. The unfortunate part of it is that we're going into day 2 of a strike, and when time comes to solving problems, we're behind the 8 ball at this point.
Yes.
Thirdly, when it comes to, I don't know what number I'm on, but I'll call it 30. With regard to the emotions in the district, the teachers are not grabbing pickaxes and torches and storming the castle. They're not. I had the distinction, believe me, when my wife was out at midnight last night shopping so we could host 50 teachers at my home this morning when they were doing their pre-rally get-together. It's not all anger and animosity. It's not. And I think it would be a stretch. I think it's an injustice, perhaps, and I'm not, please.
No.
Because I read the patches, Walt, and I've posted.
I'm going to stop.
But I think it's a bit of an injustice in minimization of the professionalism of the teachers to think that they're going to pull this back into the classroom. Yeah. When this is all said and done, there's going to be people who are hurt. There's going to be families who are hurt. There's going to be a district that could be looking at, continued financial crisis. But they're professionals. They're going to pick it up. They're going to go back into the room, and they're not going to take it with them.
Yeah, the majority of them will. There will be some that won't, because I've seen that in the past. But yes, the majority of them will do that.
I say they shouldn't be holding children hostage to do this stuff.
Well, okay, I get that. I get that. And one of the arguments, I'm a psychologist. One of the arguments that gets me every time is, what's that?
It's for the kids.
It's for the kids. That's the gut shot every time.
I know.
You can't fight the argument, except the fact that the people who are doing it for the kids got to take care of themselves. So again, I have 2 kids in the district. I'm blessed to be in this district up until the point that my taxes start getting out of control. But I get that. I want my kids to be taken care of too. And I know my wife has an eye on them all throughout the day. They're in the same school. But I have a lot of trust in the teachers and doing what they're doing. I know they're doing it for the kids. But it's an emotionally driven argument.
I don't mind paying my fair share, okay? But I don't want to pay for your retirement and my retirement, okay?
You know what I don't think?
I want to pay for my own.
That question back here first, and I'm going to come over there to you. So,
actually got a little more of a statement, and just like you say, I know there's been a lot of talk. I think everyone's looking for a bad guy, a lot of anger. Please start with me. Start with me. It's 4 months ago. I could not have told you one name on my school board. No idea. And all of a sudden, the last 3 months, I hear there's a strike. What are we going to do with my kids? Who knows? And now I've been frankly wading through a river. Sorry, there's a kid here, a river of doo-doo, trying to figure out what the heck is going on. And it is a pain. I work, I don't have time to go plow through budgets, finances, political squabbling. This guy did this guy's a drunk driver, this guy's in cahoots with this guy. It's nonsense. So, but you know what? It's my fault, because I looked in the mirror 4 months ago, I didn't know what was going on. So, start with me. And my hat's off to each of you folks who know a lot more than I do. Well, what I am going to say is I'm going to walk out of this room, I'm going to get caught up, I'm going to find out who those 5 candidates are, I'm going to meet them, and when I vote this year, I'm going to know what the heck's going on.
I'm more conservative than liberal. There are good people on both sides of the issue.
Oh, yeah.
And, when we look at this, we need to look at this, on both sides. And that, we do need to act for the kids. That is imperative. I used to teach over at Round Lake as a special educator during 2006, 2007 when they were going through a strike. And that was a difficult time for me. It actually was a driving decision why I left teaching something that I wanted to do as a young child. But again, I want to say that I just hope that there is a peaceful and equitable solution to all of this.
I just think it's a matter of economics here. I mean, everybody's sitting there like, the teachers are, they're probably doing a bang-up job at this school. Great. And I appreciate that. I don't think anybody here has a problem with the teachers teaching.
No.
I think it's a matter of everybody in the district here is seeing the property values depreciate precipitously. And now you're at a position where you're paying the same property tax and your house is valued at quite a bit less than what it was. And I don't think it's even hit bottom here. I think we're still going down.
Yeah, we're still going down
Right.
for a little, yeah.
So, and your kids are only in the district for so long, and in my case, I plan on leaving the district as soon as my kids are out of school. I don't know, I just think it's people here are angry about the money issue. It's not that teachers are doing a bad job of teaching. I think it's that they just don't have the money anymore.
Right, it is all about the money, people are losing their jobs. I don't know, when I was running for office, I tell everybody what was going on in my life. I spent 2 of the last 3 years either unemployed or underemployed. And I did that, and I worked, and I got through, and I made it through, and stuff, and I know what it's like to struggle. I know what it's like. Our economy is hurting, and I'm not the only one. And one time, there were 5 houses on my street alone that had people in foreclosure or had to go into short sale or just walked away. One of them in my street, she was a teacher, and they had to walk away from their house as well because her husband lost her job. I mean, everybody around here is struggling. That's the problem with this whole thing. The focus doesn't seem to be on the kids like it should be and looking at the community as a whole. I mean, 3 years from now, we may be able to afford races. Right now, we can't. We have to just, the economics show where we're at, and we can't run the risk of going down further and having to start borrowing to where we head toward a state takeover. We just can't allow that to happen because it is not good for the community and it is not good for the kids.
Do we have too many superintendents or too many upper level non-teaching that's taking away from that piece of the pie or the budget?
From the
Is there a way to control that?
I think, looking at our district, we're actually not bad considered some of the others. I think we have some that are a little bit overpaid. But from the pure number of administrators, we're not that top heavy. I believe there is a lot of staff that are non-teaching staff that we should look into to see how heavy we are on that, so whether some of those things can be consolidated and stuff like that. That's one of the things I've never looked at. My background's technology.
Is that all school board related?
It's all school board related. But the board the majority got rid of the finance committee where the community could come in and give them input. There's a business community that came in end of last year and offered to come in and sit down and help the board with finances and looking at stuff. They've done nothing. That's why I said both sides here are at fault. There's a lot of problem. But right now, the district can't afford to give out lots of raises, or they're going to have to lay off a whole bunch of teachers, which doesn't help the kids at all right now. And that's what the union has to recognize. Yes, if they do a property freeze right now for 2 years, strike would be over, everybody be back in school. Then we can sit down and look at all these other things that have been a failure, that haven't done stuff, and we can get through this. But everybody's got to come together. We have to sit down and talk to people that we don't necessarily agree with. We have to talk to people across the aisle, because that's the only way we're going to ever solve this. And we do have to quit the vitriol, even on the patch, all these other papers. We've got to quit yelling and screaming at each other and start talking to each other.
How the system works, how it affects.
You have to have all set up.
Yeah. It would be to the benefit of the community to pay those positions, okay? Because that's the largest problem. It's a thankless job. It's a volunteer position.
It's a volunteer position, totally.
You're working a full-time job and you're sitting there fighting with those people.
Yeah, what is it, 15 to 20 hours a week average is what a school board member puts in if they're doing their job properly, and they're unpaid.
And the people that they're talking with and negotiating with are being paid on.
Well, there's a few.
To get to extract money.
Well, yeah, a quick question up here. Well, a comment. School board members don't get paid, and I was asking if there are any perks. Yes, there are some perks depending on the personality. There's lunches they can go to. There's conferences they can go to. We recently had a couple of school board members go to Boston for a conference that the district paid for part of that. For like $2,000 to pay for them to go to Boston, which shouldn't have happened either. There are some perks. There's a conference, IASB conference for school board members every year, right before Thanksgiving, downtown Chicago. They get to go down there, spend the night in a hotel on the taxpayer, and watch the Festival of Lights sitting in a hotel that we're paying for. So, I mean, there are a few little perks, but it doesn't make up for what these school board members go through, period. It really doesn't make up for that at all.
Lenny, can you go one slide forward, please?
Which one, back to here, or?
No, the other way.
This way?
Right there. Okay, let's stop there for 1 second. 2, 4, 5 lines down without a levy increase, 1.0, 189 surplus, 1.4. Okay.
Yes.
Stop there. Can you rewind to the healthcare?
So healthcare was actually down.
Stop right there.
Yep.
Okay, so this is what we're looking at here. Granted, these are assumptions.
These are assumptions, yes, based on conversations from professionals that came into the district to talk.
Roger that. So we've got assumptions here, and we're talking about, and I'm not saying give carte blanche to either side here, but let's take the heavier of the two options at this point, which is the union proposal, which would cost us
a little lower, it was like 1.1, 1.2 million, I think it is over 2 years, something like that.
1.1, 1.2 over 2. Okay, so perhaps you're going to have to talk to me like I'm a 6-year-old on this one, because we can only prognosticate so well. Where's the problem?
There is. If they'd have done this 5 years ago, we would not be in this problem right now.
Yeah,
absolutely. They do it.
We're not 5 years ago.
Right.
Now.
If they did it now, they would have, the only problem they'd have is how long it took to get this implemented, and they've already missed probably the full year because they'd have to start the new insurance plan probably next school year. So they've kind of already missed a year. But yes, this would tremendously help them going forward within 2 years. Yeah, they'd solve the problem. That's why if the union did a freeze and negotiated and help the board get this done, problem will be solved in 2 years.
Okay, so unless rich Uncle Bob comes in and cuts a check for 1.2 million, we're not going to get out of this tomorrow.
No.
However,
no.
Why, and again, when we're talking pay increases, you're talking to the wrong guy. But if that's the case, looking at these numbers, why does the union have to submit to a pay freeze?
Because of the time it takes to get this done. And the district is already deficit spending. They've got to get out of their deficit spending. And that's the issue. If the union went to like what I presented, like a 5-year contract, if they were doing like a 3 to 4 year or 4-year contract and did a freeze the first 2 years and started raises the 3rd year, that would solve it.
Oh, I agree. They're too short-sighted. I get
yes,
it.
That's the problem. It's too short-sighted from both sides right here. But you're basically looking at 3 years before this problem solves. If they did the freeze for 2 years and then tried to work through this to get raises in the 3rd year, problem solved.
Okay, so wait, doesn't something have to give? So like if the school board agrees to the union's desires, we're going to be off budget, and that means a bunch of teachers are going to get laid off, right?
Yes.
To meet the budget. Or
yes.
You keep more people employed in the union.
And deficit spend even more and start borrowing short-term money, yes.
And the union doesn't believe the numbers, so they don't think there's going to be a layoff if they get what they want?
You'd have to ask the union specifically what about that is, but from reading what I've seen, they believe that, well, like one sign today said $26 million budget surplus. That can't be spent on teachers. It's unrealistic, and it looks, well, from the outside looking in, it looks like they're claiming there is money, and there's money there right now to pay them, but there's not. And that's the issue, is their spin, it's a spin rate. It's a game right now. A lot of it is just, how do you spin everything to take it, make people believe what you're doing and stuff. It's not negotiation, it's more spin doctoring right now instead of real information. Accurate information.
Based on a lack of trust, so you...
Yes, yeah, it is lack of trust.
Lennie, tell them why that can't be spent. Why that money...
Well, the way that if the funds are set up, and they're legally in different funds to limit the funds based on each thing, each type of thing. Education fund is the one fund that is spent on the day-to-day operations of the education, the teachers, the salaries, the benefits. They have a life safety funds. Our district has working cash funds, which is kind of one of their funds where they can use to borrow from themselves and pay it back every year. Operations and maintenance is only for construction and operations and maintenance. And then they've got specific donations that come in based on the referendums that can only be spent on certain schools and certain things in those schools based on how the referendum was worded and stuff. So there's legal ramifications. The one thing that hasn't been discussed here that is coming, that if you haven't looked at the bond debts, they backloaded the last bond debts. The payments are going to go from now, they're about 5.6, they're fluctuating 5.6. They're going to $10 million in a few years, which is something else that the board right now has not planned for. And you see the bond schedule, the 20-year bond schedule, when you issue those bonds, they know it's coming. And they're still not planning for that too. That's another problem that's coming that's not being looked at yet.
Just to give a response, no, the teachers are not minimizing or ignoring the layoffs that are coming. They know that they're coming. And the board's not going to cut with a surgeon's knife, they're going to cut with a broadsword.
Yeah, and that's a problem. That's one of the things that I actually...
That's because of the rules, though. I mean, it's like it's a typical union, last in, first out, right?
It is, and frankly, you know, that's a thing that we live with in my family. I'm a service member. I had to pick my wife up and move her around all over. You wouldn't know it, looking at my age, that my wife is a non-tenured teacher. And that's why. That's my fault. And now we're looking at this. I'm 100% convinced she's without a doubt.
One of the things I mentioned in one of the town halls that I know some people don't like to hear, but it's the truth. And actually, a school board member in another district told me this. When he sat down in negotiations, and he knew the district could not afford what they were doing, he would ask the union president, okay, you're doing this, you know there's going to be layoffs, tell me which teachers you want laid off so they're aware of it right now as part of the contract negotiations. And a lot of people don't want to hear that, but that's the truth. You know, the union should be telling their members which teachers are going to get laid off if they're going to be doing this and knowing they're going to force layoffs. Any other questions?
One comment, the vote is shocking, that what you just said about, you know, so many teachers losing their job, it was a landslide to strike.
No, there was not. There was a landslide for intent to strike. There's a big difference there. Okay?
Yeah.
There has been, and correct me if I'm wrong, there has been no further offers to the rank and file to say, this is what we're looking at, let's revote. Is that correct? Whose fault is that?
Just coming from a union's perspective on the whole way that really works, they're going to send out a ballot to the union members and say, do you authorize us the right to strike? Now, as a member, you're going to send that ballot in, you're going to say yes. The reason being is then that gives the union, listen, all these members said yes, it's a power struggle.
Yes, it's leverage for the negotiation.
Now, half the people voting yes don't want to vote yes, but to give their union the power, you have to. I mean, you have to.
Right.
And so then, once you do that, it doesn't come back. The contract, now you're trusting your negotiators to negotiate the best contract, it's collective bargaining. I mean, it's something that only unions get the privy of understanding. It's collective bargaining for the best interest of their, so the union's not doing anything wrong. They're looking at the teachers and protecting them, and that's awesome, they should. But the school board and the taxpayers then, it's a little bit different because it's not business. It all goes against, when it becomes a state or local or a business worker versus a private owned industry, it's a totally different.
It's totally, public sector versus private sector unions are totally different.
I'm not negotiating on behalf of the children, I'm negotiating on behalf of my union brethren.
Who's protecting the Joe taxpayer?
We need to start protecting ourselves. To be honest, that's right. It'd be interesting to kind of get to know everybody.
There's been 4 states, correct, that have gotten rid of collective bargaining. Is that correct?
No.
No. Okay.
No, it's about right to work. Or that's 24 states that have right to work states, and that does not get rid of collective bargaining.
Okay.
What it does is mean that you can go to work for a place, a union shop, and you are not forced to pay union dues. That's the difference. So yes, they still have collective bargaining. It doesn't stop any collective bargaining. It's just whether the members are forced to pay. Illinois is not a right to work state. Everybody that goes to work with a union shop is forced to pay their fair share plus their union dues fees. And what most people don't realize, the Beck decision, anybody that's forced to pay, they can actually get a refund. They can resign from their union, get a refund, and still have the benefits of the collective bargaining. And anybody, even in Illinois, can do that. I know lots of teachers that have. In fact, I know one teacher that does religious objection because of what the money goes for the union that he objects to. He gets, I think it's about 65 to 70% of his money back from the union dues side, and his fair share portion that pays for the collective bargaining actually goes to a charity that him and the union agreed upon. He's been doing that for 17 years. So, I mean, there's actually after the strike in Zion, several teachers up there and staff actually resigned from the union as well because of the intimidation that they received. They walked away from the union as well because they didn't want to be forced anymore for that.
I have one more question. Like this gentleman, this is all new to me, and I'm just trying to take it all in. I don't know if I wasn't aware of all the strikes, but it just seems like they're just happening everywhere.
Yes.
In your opinion, is that okay? In your opinion, do you think the union is feeling threatened all over?
Yes, I do. I think after Wisconsin and stuff, I think there was a huge power play because Illinois is such a strong union state that look at the dates of the strikes. None of them were really striking at the same time. It was week here, week here, week here. We have West Chicago now that didn't go out on strike. Looks like they may probably go out on strike. Theirs was scheduled for last week. Grayslake is scheduled for this week. Barrington 220 is scheduled for next week. It's a coordinated effort, and it really is a show of strength. And that's why I say it's a power play right now in District 46. It is a power play because we do have a very strong union in Grayslake District 46 that some school districts in Lake County don't have. So yes, that's my opinion that it is. That's what's going on.
I'd like to fight the unions, not the teachers.
Right. I said the union leaders are really some of the problems here. A lot of the teachers are victims of their own union, and it shouldn't be that way. Does anybody else have any questions? Y'all stick around. I got to clean up. You can ask me any questions you want later. Email me. Grab my card back there. Email me, and I will send out an email with all of the contacts for all of the board members and superintendent for you to be able to